morning and good night, everyone. This is update for April 4, 2022, day 40 of the war, end of the date update. So we apologize for this whole mess up with live stream. Actually, it turns out that at this moment, YouTube enabled it already because we showed it to you that they were saying, oh, it takes 24 hours. And we just tested it literally like 5 minutes ago and it was working already. So but the timing is messed up. People saw that it's different timing. We posted different timing. So unfortunately, we again apologize. This is new. We don't really know very well how it works. So we're kind of like exploring it as we go through it. So with that, we will do quick review of the map of the just general situation maps. And then we will go and answer questions that we took from our viewers. So first, there's still questions about this whole northern Ukraine situation. And we just this is just coming back and coming back. We don't even understand why. This is like just, we want to say Russian troops are gone from here. We first posted that this is happening on March 30th. So look at the videos that we posted, where we still didn't quite understand like the whole big picture, why and so on, but we saw they're leaving. And then on March 31st, we posted they decided to vacate, to abandon all of this northern Ukraine territory, right? So at that night they were gone, as we predicted. As we mentioned that night, we believe that they are already in Ivankiv and that by morning of April 1st they will be out of Ukraine. That's exactly how it happened. So there are questions like, what's going on with Sumy? Nothing. There's nothing. It's under Ukrainian control. Like border here in Sumy region, this region, and this region is under Ukrainian control at this point. There's no Russian troops there. So hopefully this is, and then there was some, speculation. Yes, it is Ukrainian victory, right? The victory that was kind of unusual victory, but it is a Ukrainian victory because Russian troops did not leave because they wanted to leave. They had to, right? And it's thanks mostly to Ukrainian militia that plug all of the mistakes made by the politician with their bodies. So that's really what happened there. Let's move now to what's going on here. So this is kind of like the front line at this point, right? So this is, call it Eastern front line, and then there is a Southern front, right? Or whatever you want to call it. But this is, so we're going to start and look what's going on at Kharkiv. Kharkiv is just shelling, right? Positional fighting, nothing major here. Russian troops here kind of exhausted, like we discussed this before. 200th Brigade is, suffered heavy casualties. 138 is the same. 144th Division, the same story. Even this one, second Special Forces Brigade suffered. And by the way, just we didn't put it here, but 144th Division has as reinforcement 59th Tank Regiment. So so it's really kind of like your typical mechanized Russian division that has a tank regiment in it. So it was kind of like, call it upgraded as we go. But they all suffered significant losses, so they're kind of on defensive here. So what we do know, let's actually go to Izyum, because this is really like the most important and real update, because it's total stalemate everywhere. And part of it is, again, as we discussed, Russian troops are reorganizing and preparing for attacks. However, we already see first signs that this Eastern troops were they moving to Izyum. So we already know that first tank division is on the Izyum bridgehead, and let's actually look here. So they're already here. Let's actually look at this. So they're already here. So at this point, Russians have like 3 divisions here with tons of tanks, because you see like 47th Tank Division, 4th Tank Division, and then 3rd Mechanized Division. So they are actively and aggressively attacking. And as we discussed before, it's unclear which path they will choose. One is more like political and to capture Slovyansk, right? So go here, more like southeast. The other one is more southwest, and the key point here is town of Bridgehead. So what we are learning right now that they actually decided to focus on town of Bridgehead, which is in it, and that's a more strategic move that, if they are successful, will bring them more results in the long run. So, so this is what's going on. So this point where they are, and it was actually end of the day yesterday. There's this village of Brazhkivka, sorry, Brazhkivka. So there was a tank, kind of like small scale tank battle, like a Kursk like a tank battles at the Kursk. So about 15, 20 tanks from each side. Different stories how many tanks got burned from each side, but about 5-6 tanks from each side got burned, maybe a little bit more. And both sides kind of like retreated from the battlefield. So this village is no man's land, kind of gray zone at this point. Well, yesterday we're sure that today Russian troops continued their attacks here. We don't know where the whole thing stands. So this really means that there is on Ukrainian side either tank brigade or regular brigade. Now we're thinking that from what we're seeing is we believe that 93rd brigade was moved somewhere here and it's actually involved in fighting. So the third tank brigade is out of question. We know that for sure. It's fighting. It was fighting in other area. 17th tank brigade still possible. It's here. So both sides suffer. The whole point is both sides suffer heavy losses here, right? But Ukrainian forces are smaller in size, so eventually, in the long run, right, Russian troops will break through this. So there is no solution for Ukrainian troops by simply trying to sort of probe this broken front line, this bridgehead. So for that reason, we discussed this before. The only sensible solution for Ukrainian troops is to attack and get to Kupiansk here, this town, because this is essentially creating kind of small scale pocket for all of these divisions here. And, at this, that will cut off supplies of fuel and everything else. And they will be just simply forced to retreat. In the process, they will lose a lot of equipment as they will be coming. And at this point, we've certain that this brigades will not let them disengage easily. So that's the only way. And yes, it might be very risky undertaking, but at this point, Ukrainian situation is such that they need to risk. Because if they just do rigid defense, how they're doing right now, eventually this is just they will be grounded to dust. So, and we already know that 91st brigade suffering heavy casualties, probably 81st as well. So this is all difficult situations, and we don't know if Russian this fourth tank division is coming from that eastern group, and let's just kind of look what else they can throw in. We don't really think 90 is in really good shape after Kyiv. Maybe this one, it's not in perfect shape, obviously. It suffered also decent casualties, but, if you're desperate, that's probably what would you take and throw in there, right? And then they also still have just regular brigades that they can be thrown there. So this is a really bad situation overall for you. So basically, Russians... This hammer is, step by step, but it's breaking the wall, and there are already significant cracks in it. And the Ukrainian side needs to do something radical about it. Otherwise, it's lost battle. So beyond that, there is ongoing fighting in Severodonetsk. We discussed this is bridgehead on the eastern side of Donetsk River for Ukraine. So Russian side tries to eliminate it at all costs. Then there is the town of Popasna. Russian troops made progress here in the city, in the town itself. So there's probably past 20 days there is a fighting about this town. maybe even longer. So they managed. So we know that they made some progress there, but it's nothing critical. Just they made progress. That's the whole significance of it. Here, west of Donetsk, it's just more like a shelling. Like the Russian troops try to use artillery to destroy Ukrainian positions here. There's like they really very well dug in here. There's lines of trenches in depths, and it's not going to be easy for Russian side, even with artillery. In Azov, in Mariupol. Let's look here. We don't have any news updates. It's static here. So in Mariupol, nothing really to say that there is just ongoing fighting here in the center of the city towards railroad station. There was actually a question, so like why they tried to capture it. So one answer is for propaganda purposes, to say, because I guess for many like ordinary people, it means like, okay, railroad station taken, that's kind of like main infrastructure point, means like city is taken. So for propaganda, that's important. Second, if you get here, then you cut the fences into two pockets, so, right? So then you can try to focus on one pocket at a time, and the other one kind of like let it sort of stay there. So that allows you to kind of dynamically move your troops, and the other side cannot dynamically move your troops. So you're getting the advantage basically. So that's a point here. Obviously, for the seaport, they trying to attack it and take it because they saw that helicopters are coming here. So they just want to eliminate that possibility. I mean, helicopters can still come to Azovstal. So we don't know why, it's not as obvious kind of point, but maybe just to say, okay, again, propaganda, we captured the seaport. So then in the south, really nothing to report here. The same story. We didn't hear about continued attacks here in towards Kherson, Russian defensive positions in Kherson. So it sounds like to us it's like some kind of stalemate. So basically positional fighting, and there's not much of a progress by either side. So let's just actually now go through the questions. So Adrian B, how did you find out about helicopter supply to Mariupol, especially the details of how many tons? So this is an example where you use many sources of information. The most important was actually interrogation of Ukrainian soldier who survived, who explained part of it, and then you just kind of start to think about it and try to understand the bigger picture. In terms of how many tons, you actually look up at the technical specification of Mi-8 helicopter. You know how many helicopters, payload, and you multiply, and you know how much they deliver. Next one, Malachi. And sorry if I'm not pronouncing your nicknames correct, Malachi, I guess. What is your best prediction for a peace settlement that both sides would accept, if any at all? I think the part that's probably where Ukraine is willing to sort of accept is not joining NATO and EU. I think that's where the Ukrainian side is willing to compromise. And the side where Ukrainian side is not willing to compromise about Ukrainian territories, which means also Crimea and all of this captured Donbass region. So that's a problem right now, and there is a problem from Russian side to accept that. So and then also there are like requests from Russian side to reduce Ukrainian army to like 50,000 people, and not essentially kind of like a Weimar Germany after World War One, basically this kind of stuff. So I don't think that this part probably will. There is possibility to compromise in terms of like Russia will accept that the Ukrainian army is not going to be 50,000. But I think the territorial problem is the biggest problem here. Then Sion, if that's right. could you show some of your sources? If that was specifically that Ukraine has been using helicopters Mariupol many times, I only find it once. Well, obviously, because the way it happened is Ukrainian side is not gonna tell you, hey, announce like, yeah, we're using helicopters to supply Azov and Ukrainian troops there, right? I mean, that's gonna be suicidal. So you know this after it's being done many times, right? And the way we know it's being done many times because the day before, Russian side reported that they shot down over the sea helicopter, and if whether they shot it down or not is another question. It's still under question. But they saw a Ukrainian helicopter, right? So they were thinking that they really were thinking in a perverted way. So they were thinking that Ukrainian side is evacuating the top of top commanders and preparing to break out and retreat. So that's kind of like what they wish what would be happening, but it wasn't. So then on the second day, they actually shot down one helicopter, and they claim second one, but again, there is no supporting evidence for the second one, right? And so this is very clear now. Then this is your analysis, right? This is part where you analyze it, this information, and you start to understand. Then you watch this interrogation of Ukrainian soldier, who gives you another pieces of information, and from that you build the picture, right? So that's how it works. How long till effective Ukrainian replenishments of? Okay, that's actually second question. Actually, but yes, it was a repeated question. Sorry. How long till effective Ukrainian replenishment of forces, new units become combat effective? So usually it's about 3 months. That's kind of like a minimum bare-bone training. So let's say war started end of February, so that's probably end of May. We do think that there are troops. There is not only even problem with the people, like there's enough of people who want to fight and who want to defend the country. There is more problem on Ukrainian side with equipment. So that's what's holding the whole thing back on Ukrainian side. And it's actually opposite on the Russian side. So it's totally mirror opposite. So they have plenty of equipment, but at this point it's the amount of willing people is drying up very quickly. So that's kind of dynamic situation there. Frank Sposato, can you provide material losses on both sides? No, we don't have that. I mean, both commanders don't report to us, Frank. Sorry. We just know that they significant, and in a way, I think the focus on material losses is wrong, because it's not tanks who fight, not aircraft, airplanes. It's people who fight, right? That's who is valuable, really. Like people who capable of using weapons effectively. So it's all about people, not about the weapons in the end. Your best guesses and maybe probable reinforcements that you see. Well, it's really long. Like if we start discussing this, is going to be really long. Say maybe let's keep it for as we at the high level. Russian has just finished kind of training their conscripts. So those conscripts were called in we believe it was April of last year. Well, it's kind of actually staggered. So it was April of last year, 2021, and then October of 2021. So they have that pool, but they cannot really use it because formally Russia is not at war, right? It's a police operation, technically, from a legal term. Like how legally it's a police operation. So because of that, all of those conscripts can say no. In many, that's what they do, most of them, right? So they desperately trying to how to say, incentivize those conscripts to sign the contract and go to the war as professional soldiers. Many people really hated my term mercenaries. But okay, so they are professional soldiers. So we estimate that not more than 20% of those conscripts willing to do that. So that's about gives them 25,000 of the manpower. So that's probably enough to plug the hole that they lost so far from the beginning of the war, right? So at this point, they are like melting ice cube in a way, Russian forces, very slowly melting, but they already not at the peak of their manpower number wise. So this probably will let them kind of like give them a second opportunity in terms of they can go back to where they were. And that's still not enough troops to conquer Ukraine. But they made the changes to their strategy. They gave up on Kyiv because they couldn't do it. They give up basically northern Ukraine. So the focus is just Donbass, right? In a way, it's actually similar to, and again, a lot of people for some reason hate those analogies with World War II, and specifically Soviet German side of it, where Germany attacked at first on all three front lines, three areas, right? North, center, south. In 1941, now, when they had troops, they were advancing on all three front lines, or army groups, how they call it. And when, as the time passed, when they lost, they have mounting losses, didn't have enough troops to replace those. They had to only focus at offensive activities to only one sector, to let's say southern one, right? So that was 1942. Then in 1943, that got even worse. They only had to, they can only at that point focus on a small section of the southern front line, right, which was Kursk salient. So this is the same here, happening here. Russian troops attacked everywhere, right? North Ukraine, eastern, south. They even wanted to attack Odessa, and that's not happening because they don't have enough resources. They're realizing it, so they're shrinking, right? So they like, okay, well, this is kind of like the like 1943 kind of time, Kursk. So they're saying right now, okay, we cannot do even like the whole entire Eastern Front or Southern, so we'll just keep it stable. But we're picking the section of the Eastern Front, which is northern Donbass, and we will try to attack it and take it with all of our. We'll just create two pincers, and actually right now it's really one pincer in action, and we'll throw. And it's actually very similar, like how Germans they just created those armored pincers and tried to cut through Russian Soviet defenses. That's probably the right way to say it. And this is exactly happening, and that was pre-announced. Like everybody knew this is where the attack is happening. This is, people had Soviet side had like a month to prepare, more than a month to prepare. So they created, defensive lines and stuff. And this is very almost, it's amazing that how it replays. And as they say, history doesn't repeat literally, but it rhymes, and it does rhyme very much in this case. So, in terms of Ukrainian replacements, they do create. They constantly do that, and there is machine working in terms of manpower preparing. But the problem is equipment, right? Ukraine is lacking equipment as a whole. So that's a problem in the Ukrainian side. Frank, sorry for the long answer, but it wasn't kind of a simple question. Frank Sposata, can you provide material losses on your no, okay, sorry, well, that's what we were answering. Stivosaurus, I don't know if that's right, probably not. Do we know anything about the quality of the troops used in the northern area? We're not sure which troops. If you're talking about Russian troops, they were good troops. probably most prepared, most like, hey, we want to fight, like those kind of troops. So this is, again, an analogy with the Germany in 1941 when they attacked Soviet Union. This is their, like, most, like, hey, we want to fight, we want to conquer it. This kind of troops that were there. So on Ukrainian side, there was like militia. They were also want to like defend and fight, but they're just severely lacking um, skills and knowledge. Like some people just like, okay, I got like today in 1 hour ago the um automatic rifle, and I'm just gonna go and fight. So a lot of them died as a result of that, defending Kiev. I think I mentioned anecdotal evidence. There is a village called Rubizhkivka. So there was a team of militia of 23 people. This is just one of the teams, not like just, that's all militia that's defending. I'm just saying, just taking anecdotal evidence. So out of 23 people, or 25, I don't remember this point, only three survived. So they plugged with their bodies the holes that was mistakes that were created by politicians. In terms of Kyiv, Kyiv is obviously the focus, but the problem is Russian troops were defeated there. They were not defeated in a spectacular way, but in a way that they have to retreat from the battlefield, right? So it's undisputable that they left the battlefield because they couldn't achieve anything and they were losing there. They will, if they can, they will try to to come back and capture Kiev again, but that's just at this point it's less and less likely with every day. Okay, Ole Ostbakken. It would be interesting to hear more about your sources. Okay, this is social media, and we kind of explained the story about like this helicopter and supply, where social media is just like gives you some information, but it's really your own analysis and understanding how things work. That's really what this is all about. So it's critical thinking at the core of it, and really understanding how things work on the ground, not just like a theory, like kind of like book theory. And this we're not against books, actually, we love books, but this kind of like common sense, really grounded in the nature, in reality. That's what really drives the analysis. And then the question is, it would be interesting to know if there are satellite. Oh yeah, they are, but they cost money, and we don't have money to buy them. So sorry. And the reason for the lack of the media is because actually Russian army takes away all of the mobile phones from the soldiers. So when they enter Ukraine, they have no mobile phones, like zero, and any tools, electronic tools to make just make any video material. And this is obviously part of it, is that they becoming clever because they don't want any compromising material showing up, right? Because you cannot control 200,000 people. There are, for sure, there's some portion of them that will do military crimes. And they clever about this, and they just decide, okay, we'll just take everything from everyone. So they don't have it. So that's part of the reason why you don't see much, because like literally 50% is cut off, right? So on the Ukrainian side it's probably because social media that's used in Ukraine is different from the West, and so there is no overlap, right? So you're probably using, let's say, Facebook, and I mean people do use Facebook, but not. It's becoming less popular, and they don't really use like YouTube as much. So in a way, just mismatch between the social media types that's used. And then there was just simply lack of internet. Like a lot of infrastructure is broken. Then next one, Teat Soul. Is Russia in better attacking position now after withdrawal from North? Is Russia's supply line safer in east, and are they able to supply with train? So the question is in better if it's maybe not even the correct question. They made the right decision for the situation they were in, right? When you're in bad situation, continuing staying in bad situation is not intelligent, and they pulled out of the bad situation. So it was the right choice. No, they're not in better attacking position because they suffered losses while they were staying in the north. So, let's say you have 100% of troops, now you have 90% of the troops, so maybe 80% of the troops, right? So you lost, and you have fewer troops, so your chances of success at this point lower. Obviously, like, supply lines are better, there's no question about it. And yes, they do train extensively. The train is important piece of infrastructure in this war. 123 Dune Buggy. Could you talk in more general about sources methods regarding your wits and perhaps a bit background? No, about the videos we just gave example about this helicopter bridge to Mariupol, so you can get it. You probably have a feeling about like how it's done. It's a lot of work. Like connecting pieces of information, and it's more analysis. That's where the value is coming from, not from some special sources that were giving to us or whatever. No. Background, it's not safe for us, so we're not going to discuss that. We answered this many times to other people. Arvi Doerwein. Today I read about reinforcements 100 to be sent to Ukraine from Russia. Is there anything to it, and what quality can such troops have? What weapons do you think they will have? Is there still enough suitable material available? So in terms of weapon equipment, we answered this many times. For now, Russia has enough of, like, let's say, military equipment, meaning artillery, multiple rocket launchers, tanks, all of that. Still enough airplanes that they have fewer of them, and actually a lot fewer, but they still have enough to continue fighting. In terms of 100 to this amount, we really surprised. We don't. This really means mobilization in Russia, right? So like, they just say, but that really means they say we have a war. And so far, when even Ukraine hit with the rockets Belgorod region of Russia, that was excellent opportunity for them to announce, okay, we were attacked, this is war, now mobilization. They didn't do it because it probably will be totally politically unacceptable, in our opinion. That's why they, not because they didn't want it, I'm sure they do, but politically it would be hard for them. So we don't really we don't believe in this 120 to 130,000 people to be sent to Ukraine. Vadim Hershman, how do you collect information? Social media. And what the best move on the Ukrainians are now? They really need to save Donbass, like prevent encirclement. That one, and the other one is, it's in our view, it's low-hanging fruit of destroying Russian troops in the northern Kherson region. It could be really easy done. It could be easy win that sort of improves morale. So that's probably what she do. And there is a problem with helping Mariupol. So whatever they can do, this helicopter bridge, whatever is, it sounds like they got creative, right? Because nobody expected this helicopter bridge. They should continue as much as they can, even if they suffer relatively high losses delivering that equipment, the supplies. If Russia's true aim is to, so Steve, who believe it's Sherbak, if Russia's true aim is to focus on the Donbass area, then why are they sending missiles all over Ukraine? Lviv, for example, strategic importance. So they shooting mostly they want to destroy infrastructure, right? Because that's how it's kind of like how it's a blood vessels for the war. So if they're not shooting like randomly, this is actually, we have to give credit. They're not shooting at, it happens, but there is no clear evidence that they're shooting at residential buildings, right? What they do, they shoot mostly at the storages of the fuel and command facilities of the Ukrainian army, storages of equipment, military factories. So all of the infrastructures that helps you to fight. So they try to destroy it. Especially they want to clearly create fuel shortages. So that's why they do it. Part of it is propaganda to show off how great we, and to show off not to Ukraine. Like, it's internal, and to show off to the US, to the European Union, to the UK, that if you're gonna get involved here more, we're gonna start shooting that stuff towards you, and it will be loaded actually with nuclear stuff, not just spending hypersonic missile that probably cost $20 million on a house with people, but it's still a house. So that's just why they do it. Matias Spevacek, maybe, if that's right. Hi, do we know what will happen near Sumy now? We clearly showed it, like probably like on March 1st, 30th, that they withdrawing, and then we totally confirmed that on March 31st. Please watch videos. That's it. Sumy is under Ukrainian control. Russian troops withdrew from there, and for now, that's it. It doesn't mean that it's forever it, but for now, this is under Ukrainian control. Nick Spicer, do you have an opinion on the long-term forecast for the war, and what do you think about sanctions and potential no-fly zones? Well, it's turning into war of attrition, and unfortunately, Russia is getting a little bit in better position by destroying Ukrainian infrastructure. It's still possible, and the part of it is totally inept and incapable Ukrainian government, or sort of the top, that's so-called ruling class. So I don't know how to better say it. That's because most of it is avoidable and addressable. And a lot of people in Ukraine on the ground complain that this is a really common sense thing that can be done, that effectively reduce effectiveness of those rocket strikes by 90%. Not because you intercept them, but even without, let's say you don't intercept anything, the effectiveness could be reduced tremendously if you do it right. But totally inept to open Ukraine, in our opinion, in this way. Sanctions do work, but it's a long-term tool. Like in 6 months, and like by the winter, it's gonna get really bad in Russia. So they're not quick things, but it cuts both ways. We understand this, like in Europe and in US, standard of living is going down very clearly, right? In some places like Sri Lanka, is people essentially creating like uprisings, and not because they have some true political things, but because of the economic situation is terrible, and it's gonna get worse because there will be less supply of food, because a lot of it is coming from Ukraine and then from Russia, and things just getting messed up there. And like we hear anecdotal of evidence of like this, let's say Russian, like withdrawing Russian troops, they took all of the harvesters, like whatever they couldn't take, they burned. So it's and the same from, let's say, Kherson region, that they took them to Russia, and so if you don't have equipment, you're not going to be productive. That's very simple. And then Russia is cut off, and they dependent on the seed supplies, on like sperm for pigs and for cows and stuff. Like it's really gonna create really big problems, and the longer it lasts, it's gonna be like much deeper, and then it's gonna take much longer time to fix it. Like no-fly zones, I think the West is very clearly afraid of it, and the part of it is because Putin is showing by sending those missiles that you're going to be next target of them if you do that. So nobody wants to dares for that reason to do no-fly zones, and I don't think they're gonna happen. Oh, okay. Well, second question from Adrian B. Okay, well, actually, this is kind of like important questions. We want to just answer this because, I mean, everybody hears this. We don't want to discuss the whole murder and stuff. Like, this is not the point. But the way it actually works, and that's why this question is actually irrelevant. It's not about the unit. The way, and actually, military units, that's not who does that stuff. So that's why when they say, "Oh, like Unit XYZ did it," no, nobody knows like who. Like, well, here's what we explain who actually could have done this. And so, well, you generally have 200,000 people, right? This is the army. You have always some small percentages, whatever it is, 0.5, 0.1% of criminals who do bad things, right? That's just like in the society, you have criminals that do bad things, right? So that's kind of like, it's not normal, but that's what happens, right? So, but that's really tiny. And what you see there is different story, that there was systemic, right? It was done intentionally. Like, they were like, yes, they were like random criminal activities, right? So that's just one thing. It's unfortunately unavoidable, but it was just kind of like bad people doing bad things, right? But what also happened there, it was more systemic. And the way it's actually done, it's not done by the regular military troops. So the goal of regular military troops is to fight the opposite side, right? So like military of the opposite side, destroy them and move forward. So what happens after military troops move forward, then comes kind of like, call it in cleaning troops, right? So like troops that filter, and this is obviously euphemisms. What they really do, they come and they kill. The whole point is identify the leaders, right? So that's the mayors and like heads of this XYZ, whatever, just all kind of leaders, and either co-opt them, or if they don't want to kill them. So that's what happens there. And who does this? This is usually done by so the kind of like how to say um, the physical power that's doing it is usually, you saw that special forces brigade there, and then there was like 141st regiment and sober. That's who does the physical part of it. The intellectual part that's behind it, because they all have list of the people they were seeking. So there wasn't just like, oh, randomly. They had like, there's a lot of leaked material from Ukrainian side to the Russian, so they knew who is in Ukrainian militia. So they were going after their relatives. They, and the veterans from like who were fighting in 2014. So they have a list of all of those people. So we're going after them. And the intellectual part is done by FSB, which is KGB, and there are two kind of like components there. And then what's called GUR. It's Главное управление разведки. So this is kind of like military equivalent of FSB or KGB. So basically, they kind of like created to have competition between the two, so that both things don't relax, kind of. So they keep each other in check. So this is done by intellectual kind of like part is done by those organizations. So this is not military units. So hopefully that clears like this question, and that's why how if it's like, oh, military unit XYZ did this, it's kind of like it's propaganda, right? Because it's done in totally different, like how it's a kind of like special machine that's organized in very it's actually very logical how it's done if that's what you want to do. Attila Yakubov, do you think the Ukrainian German republics will join Russia soon? Maybe even Belarus will join and they will make union state for the 100th anniversary of the Soviet Union? No, we don't think so. Max, Arestovich said that Ukrainian forces are trying to cut off supply for Mariupol in the area of Zaporozhye. Do you have any, like that question just simply doesn't make sense what you're saying. The Ukrainian forces not try, like this doesn't make sense. Like just something is totally like wrong was the question. Brian O'Kello, are the Ukrainian attacks on Kherson a means to put pressure on the Russians and hold down their troops to prevent them from reinforcing Mariupol? If secondly, what are the odds of stalemate developing in the Donbass? Now both sides likely to commit significant sources. Likely, if Russia could seize control of the Donbass and Mariupol and tighten the grip on Kherson, do you believe that they stop there, seeing that they quite untrustworthy? Thanks a lot. Well, to be fair, Brian, you asked too many questions. We asked only for one question, so we'll just pick one question because it's not fair to others. So about Kherson, no, Ukrainian troops obviously attack because they want to attack, right? They just want to fight. They want to push Russians out of the Ukraine. So that's kind of motivation there. It does not really. It does not put pressure on those Russian troops because those Russian troops are not intended for Mariupol. They are intended for Odessa and for Kryvyi Rih. So those troops are there for different reasons. We don't really think at this point that they will be capable of getting anywhere. Sites Tribe Homestead. What defense systems would most effectively protect Ukrainian cities from the aerial bombardment, and what would it take to effectively deploy those to crucial frontline positions? Really, honestly, the biggest problem is actually you can do yourself many things without any defense systems. And the best thing is actually to relocate as many people as possible to villages. This is actually what was done in Germany in 1944 when they were bombed by Allied air fleets. So that's the most efficient way of addressing that problem. And then, all of the rockets and stuff, you cannot protect from, let's say, hypersonic missiles, unfortunately. That's just the reality of it. So there is not equipment and so on. You can probably protect, and they do protect from others, but it's really they could be done much more on the call it Ukrainian government side, if they were more, call it intelligent about this and cared. And then second is about them. It's actually going to be a part of it is a problem with all of this defense system because they require trained and intelligent, intelligent is part, but trained people who understand, let's say, English language or wherever. And just there's not many trained people in Ukrainian army. So it will take time, probably 3, 4, there's a lag time. And in this war, like 3, 4, 5, 6 months is a lot. Daniel Nunes. What is the current involvement of China in the war? So there's no direct involvement, but it's actually they in a overt way support Russia. And one thing that we want to share is, and this is we actually want to ask people to boycott this company. It's called DJI. So if if you like copters and all that stuff. So they sell to Russian army their unmanned aerial vehicles. Basically, this is commercial stuff, but it's actually being sold to Russian army, and it's being used in mass there for to help with artillery, like directing artillery fire. And Ukraine actually reached out to this company saying like, "Hey, you need to stop this." Because what they also did, so there is a tool called Aeroscope that they sell, and they sold it to Russian army. And what that does, it allows you to get information from all DJI quadcopters anywhere in the region. And even if they are used by Ukrainian, let's say Ukrainian militia uses them a lot, right? Because they're very helpful. So unfortunately, all of the information goes to Russian army, and then they actually hit that militia because they know GPS coordinates, and then they hit that Ukrainian militia. So this is very vicious and evil in our way because they know what's happening. They know how Russian army is using it, and they despite many kind of calls to change, they still do it. So so that's and I'm sure there are other ways how in similar way that so there's basically everything is very overt. There's no direct kind of like very clear straight in your face involvement. So this is just one example. Vadim K, what weapons should NATO be sending Ukraine that they haven't already? Should they be training them on NATO systems? Blah. That'll be easier to supply. What is the best strategy, in your opinion, for Ukraine if the goal is eventually regaining its lost territory? I think the best, actually, strategy is to produce weapons in Ukraine. Really need to change how Ukraine functions in terms of the economy, and that really needs to change at the mental level of the government, Ukrainian government, which we don't see how that's going to happen. So that's the whole saying that Ukraine needs really to produce, basically row their own boat. Yes, it's important for the NATO to help. Without help right now, Ukraine, would fail for sure. And in terms of it's just too unrealistic that, let's say, NATO will send F-16 or F-18 or whatever, right? That really means that Russia will start shooting hypersonic rockets at Poland, at Germany, and potentially with a nuclear payload. So everybody's scared of that, and this is unfortunately not going to happen. And their air defense, that would be very helpful for Ukraine. And I think one big problem that's actually getting less of a problem, but still big problem is the sky, right? That Russian troops extensively use Su-34. It's a tactical bomber that's creating quite a bit of damage, and it's new aircraft, so it's pretty decent. Let's put it this way, in its capabilities. It's not just old Soviet, I'll call it junk, like Su-25, even though that's still okay, but they're not as great as this one, as Su-34. So that would help to protect against those. And it's not going to help to protect it against Russian rockets. So that's still going to be a problem. But at least the troops can start moving much more freely, and maybe that would create an opportunity to attack towards Mariupol, because right now it's suicidal attack. Gerard, any information on supply situation for Ukrainians in the Donbass? Do they still have operational mobility? As far as we know, yes, they still do. We don't know how it's going to last, but because Russian side is actively hitting any fuel supply depots in Ukraine. So it's not clear how long it's going to last, but so far it is still okay. Are Russian forces capable of taking Kharkiv? In general, yes, but in specifically to your answer is no, because that is not there's not objective of Russian troops right now. There is essentially just artillery shell at this point around Kharkiv, because all of the troops were like capable, in good shape. All troops were being sent right now to actually Izyum. That's the focal point of this whole front line right at this point, right? It's like I don't know, southern side of the Kursk salient right now. That's like where everything goes at this point for Russians. Okay, well, this is it for today, and we will do tomorrow again, like actual live stream. So we'll try to do it the same time as we discussed. So so hopefully it's gonna go better. It's gonna be more live, and it's gonna be more interesting, more fun. But hopefully this helps for a lot of people. Thanks again. Until tomorrow. Bye bye.